My name is Bill Fisher. This demo covers adding color in Adobe Animate. We're going to start where we left off with the drawing demo. We'll be using the ICU Universal Design Color Palette. So let's import that palette. We'll do that by choosing Window and Swatches. That pops up this window. Let's put these over here in our panels so that we can find it when we need it. We can load in the Universal Color Palette by going to the hamburger menu and choosing Replace Colors. We can find our Universal Color Swatches-animate.clr file that we downloaded, choose Open, and there it is. Let's start by filling the head with a color. We'll use the Paint Bucket tool for that. Right here we can choose a color, and let's choose this one right here, and we can click with the Paint Bucket anywhere on the head, and you see it will fill it. If you have problems filling a shape, you can go down here and change the gap size to close large gaps. And that will usually take care of the issue. Now let's fill the beak. Again with the Paint Bucket tool, I'll choose a color and Paint Bucket on the beak. But you see, nothing happens. That's because the beak is in a group. So if I double click the group, click out, and then get the Paint Bucket and click on the beak, you'll see now it colors. To get back into the scene, I simply go up here and click on Scene 1 or the back arrow. Now I'm going to color the inside of the beak using a different method. It's a group, so I'll double click it. Then I'm just going to select the fill area that's already gray, and then I can come over here and choose a color, and it will turn that gray fill into the color that I chose. You can see when I click back out of the inner beak, there's a white spot here. I think that's probably on the main beak. So I'll double click it, and sure enough, there's that fill. If I delete it, then it won't cover up the inner beak. Let's color the eyes. This is a group, so I'll double click in. And I can't remember if that's a shape or a line, so I'll check in Properties as I have it selected, and I can see, yes, it's a line because it has a stroke. So I can click on Swatches while this is selected and choose a color. And then we have a blue eye. I'd like this black stroke to be covering the eye in the layer order, so I'll choose it. It's a group. I can go to Modify, Arrange, and bring it to the front. Let's look at some other ways we can fill a shape. I'll click on the head, choose Window, Color, and this is the color panel. I'll slide this next to Swatches, and you can see that while the color is selected for the head, we have linear gradient, radial gradient, and bitmap. Bitmap fill is to import, let's say, a bitmap pattern or texture. Let's choose radial gradient. You can see when we did that, it put its own default colors in. But if we want to create our own colors, we can double click on these little tabs, and I can choose this for the center color. I can manipulate this gradient fill by choosing the head, choosing Free Transform, and while holding down, choosing Gradient Transform tool. This gives me the ability to shape this transform tool in a number of ways. I can manipulate it quite a bit. I like to put the center point underneath another element or outside of the shape so that it's not so visible. I'd like to change the color of that beak, make it a little darker. So I'm going to click the group, double click the beak, and then select its color. Now I could use the eyedropper tool and perhaps pick up another color like this, but I don't think I want it to be blue. I can also use the eyedropper tool to pick up a color I'm already using, and then here in the color panel, I can make a variation of it. Let's add some shading to this head. I'm going to use the paintbrush tool for that. Increase its size quite a bit. Choose a fill color, which I'm going to paint with. And then there is an extra tool that I'm going to find for the paintbrush that's not visible to me right now. So I'll pull this panel out, and there it is. I'm going to put this in Paint Fills Only mode. Now, as I paint across here, you'll see it puts a nice little shading and it crops it into the head. Now I can adjust this shading the same way I do any other shape after I paint it. I can also adjust its color by selecting it and simply choosing a different color, or choosing the color tab and mixing a custom color. You can see I added a couple of shadings here on the beak as well, but I'm not happy with the way this one worked out. So I'm going to zoom in on it, get my subselection tool, and I can go in here using points and manipulate that to get something closer to what I intended. Got a small piece of line here I would like to get rid of. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and right here under the options, I'm going to choose Erase Lines. That way I can go in here and try to erase that. But you see it's not working because that is in a group. So I go into the group, and now I'll be able to erase it. I don't think I want to have black lines everywhere. So I'm going to choose the line that goes around the head. You see it only gets part of it. But if I double click, it will get the entire line. Now I can go to Properties, and you can see that it has black stroke. So I can go in here and choose perhaps a reddish or a brownish stroke. With our initial color in place, we can do some adjustments using layer effects. We can do these while the layers are locked. Let's start with the beak layer. I'm going to choose it, go to Properties, and let's choose Color Effects. One thing I can do is simple brightness adjustments. I can tint it more or less any color. And I can also add a filter, which is more powerful if we used Adjust Color. Now I can adjust the hue. I can adjust the brightness, the contrast, and the saturation. I think I'm going to make that beak a little bit darker and a little bit more saturated. And that wraps up the demo for today.